What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Of course, you know it's your boy B Hot Radio Shout In. Stepping in the building, I got a guy that is a documentarian, an entrepreneur. I mean, a true fighter. I mean, some folks say that this man is the guy that kind of started the whole consciousness movement in the community as of in these 2000s. I'm talking about my dog, Tariq Nasheed. What's good with it, boss?
I'm good, man. What's going on with you,
I
B
mean,
Hot?
feeling good, feeling great. Now, I mean, Tariq, this new documentary,
Yes.
Buck Breaking.
Yes. Yes.
I had a chance to marinate on it, man, and I mean, it was extremely deep, profound, and everything else. Talk to me about why did you feel the need to come with Buck Breaking in this year?
We are in a warfare. We're in a state of warfare right now with the system of racism, white supremacy. And we have to understand how warfare works. Warfare is just not military. Warfare is just not physical. Warfare is also educational. Warfare is also scientific. Warfare is also sexual. There's sexual warfare. We're getting hit on all fronts, so we need to understand how to counter this stuff on all fronts. Buck Breaking talks about how we are sexually and also scientifically broken by the dominant society and how we're attacked. When we look at the media now, they're attacking our sexuality, they're attacking our gender, they're using all types of chemicals to masculinize women and feminize men. And this is something that is well documented. A lot of white supremacists like to call me a conspiracy theorist for pointing this stuff out, but if you watch the movie Buck Breaking, we carefully document how black people have been experimented on. When we've been put in these prisons, they've done all types of tests and experiments on us in these prisons. These pharmaceutical companies have contracts with prisons to do experiments, and when cats go in prison, a lot of them don't come out the same, and that's by design. So we talk about historic buck breaking, them attacking our sexuality, which has been going on for centuries, and the same tactics are being used today. So nothing has really changed, but we have been told to be afraid to talk about what's going on with us sexually because we'll get labeled homophobic. So a lot of folks are afraid of that label, but no, we went all in and told the truth about what's going on out here.
What was it that triggered you, Tariq, that made you say, you know what, I need to do a documentary on this and really delve deep into Buck Breaking?
What really made me want to do it is because as we see, whenever we as black people have any type of project going on, especially with the dominant society, the white LGBT community has to come in and not only piggyback off of it, but come in and control it. So everything that we see now, we're told that black people, if we do not promote the LGBT agenda, that we're homophobic and we're going to get punished. See, that's the thing. They say they'll label us and put titles on us, but then they'll start talking about how they're going to deprive us of stuff. For example, Kevin Hart. They dug up some old jokes of Kevin Hart and then told him, hey, look, if you don't bow down and apologize for telling a homophobic joke, and he's a comedian. A lot of white comedians tell the same types of jokes. They don't get punished and reprimanded. They told him, we're not going to let you host the Oscars. We're going to dangle your career in front of your face if you don't bow down to us. They did the same thing with Tracy Morgan. He told a gay joke years ago, and then they made him bow down. They do this with black people in order to kind of keep us on a leash, to make an example out of us, to let other people know, if you don't go along with this agenda, we're going to reprimand you or punish you. So I said, we're going to have to go all in and talk about how the racism from the white LGBT community is just as rigid as the racism from the white hetero community, It's almost more pronounced. Historically, the white LGBT community, they have done horrible things to black people. And I'm talking about going all the way back into ancient times. And we break that down in the movie. The trick bag that they have on us, the white LGBT community, they've done horrific things to us. And then they turn around and say, hey, we're just like you. Discriminating against us is like discriminating against black people. Misgendering me is like using the N-word against black people. So that's the trick bag that they've run on us. So we had to unravel that in the movie.
What went through your mind when you saw the correlation between Fred Hampton's rainbow and the LGBT rainbow?
And we talked about that in the movie. Fred Hampton was the brother who created the Rainbow Coalition. See, a lot of stuff comes from us. The Rainbow Coalition was something that our brother Fred Hampton was promoting. He was killed by an LGBT, J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover ordered his murder. So then they murdered that brother, and then they took that rainbow thing. They first gave it to Jesse Jackson. He started doing the Rainbow Coalition, and then the white LGBT community saw that that rainbow thing was connected to black organizations. Then they piggybacked off of it. They also have something now, and we talked about this in the movie. They have something called the Rainbow Underground. Playing on the Underground Railroad, where they get LGBT people from Africa and the Caribbean to bring them over here and make them the leaders of black organizations. So it's a real deep agenda that's going on, and we should not be ashamed of calling that out.
The movie coming out #1 on Amazon, man. Talk to me about that success.
Now that one shocked me. That shocked me because usually we're the #1 documentary. I'm like, oh, cool. Right now, we're the #1 movie, period, on Amazon. I'm like, period. We're the #1 movie out of all movies. I'm talking about Harry Potter, King Kong versus Godzilla on Amazon. We're the #1 movie right this minute. So that shocked me. That shocked me. But that just shows the power of black people, man. We have to stop thinking we have to go to the dominant society in order to get stuff popping. There's enough of us, and when we get on code, we can get stuff popping. And we got the numbers to prove it. Now, what's interesting, before the movie came out, the week before, I was attacked in the media heavy. But they were going in on me about all types of stuff. They were just coming up with all types of reasons to attack me. I'm chilling and I hear on TV how I'm a horrible person, and I turn on radio and all these talk shows, and I'm horrible, I'm this, I'm that. And they always do that whenever I try to put a movie out. They try to do this to discredit me because I don't go through those channels. I'm one of the few people, fortunately, who can get a project like this popping without going to the dominant society, without kissing the ass. And I want us to get into the habit of getting stuff done without having to suck up to them, because we have enough numbers. We don't need middlemen. They have to go through us anyway, because they look at black people as the progenitors of culture. Let me tell you something. I was on a plane one time, and there was a sister sitting next to me, and we're just talking, and she was telling me about what she does. And she's an internet consultant. What she does, she told me that these corporations like Coca-Cola and so many others, she worked with Coca-Cola, they have people on payroll who just sit around and study black people online. All they do is watch black people's Instagrams, watch black people's Twitter, and find out what we're doing, where's the culture going, and then they come up with little marketing techniques based on the trends of what black people are doing online. We're studied all the time, man. So we have to understand our worth and our power and utilize it for ourselves.
When you watch social media and you watch different platforms that kind of coincide with the movie Buck Breaking, and you see how subliminally you can watch that and then wind up buck broking this thing. What goes through your mind at that time when you think about social media as a weapon as well? Yeah,
on social media, what's interesting, and this is the big problem that I have, is that they target children with this stuff. They start telling children that, you should put on a dress, and they're talking about pedophilia as if it's like a lifestyle now. So they're trying to push that to kids. That's where we have to kind of draw the line and say, hey, enough is enough. We got to stop being afraid to call these people out, because they're putting a lot of stuff in cartoons. You look at Netflix. I was looking at Netflix one day, and there was a cartoon I'm watching with my kids, and the cartoon character was like, hey, I'm gay, and whoop-de-whoop. I'm like, what is this doing in a cartoon? So Disney got something now. They have the Proud Family coming out again. They did a revamp of the Proud Family. So they're going to have 2 gay dads in the Proud Family, in an interracial couple, and they got a non-binary character. So this is warfare, man. They're putting this stuff on our children. Our children are too young to really focus and understand what this stuff is really about. When you start trying to teach LGBT history, and I always ask people, what exactly is that? Because how are you going to explain what those letters mean? LGBT, bisexual. How do you explain what a bisexual is to a damn 4 or 5-year-old? See, we got to understand what these people are trying to do. The movie Buck Breaking is going to help people deprogram themselves from the propaganda that we're getting hit with. I mean, they're hitting our children with cartoons, they're hitting adults, they're hitting everybody with this stuff, and we have to know how to counter that.
Population control, how much of a factor do you think that plays into everything, if any?
Yeah, I believe it does play into population control. There's a reason why they keep promoting non-procreative sex to black people. They're promoting this to us heavy. Let's be clear. They don't really promote this stuff to white society too heavy, because white people, they fight about this stuff. They fight about LGBT. They're like, hey, you ain't gonna teach this to us. They have a knockdown, drag out fight about it. But with black people, all of the dominant society, they're perfectly fine with this stuff being taught to us, because if it could lower our population, so be it. Also, if that can bring in diseases or whatever, so be it. Also, if it can break our children and destroy the warrior class, so be it. So they got a lot of benefits for teaching us this type of agenda.
When you're looking at television and you're thinking about music as well, man, and just the socialization of our community through those tactics and stuff like that, how much responsibility should we take as the community? Because at the end of the day, we are those characters that are on television and on radio and then, in the music as well. So how much of a responsibility do you expect us to take? Corey Holcomb, he was on the documentary as well, he would not put on that dress.
Yeah.
So that was an example of somebody that takes responsibility in how he carries himself out here in these streets. How much of a responsibility do you think everybody needs to take? Oh, well, as far as getting on code, how about that?
We don't have to do everything for money, man. We got to understand, every time we get around the dominant society, man, we ain't got to start shucking and jiving and bowing down just to get a dollar. We got to get that whole mentality out of our system. And a lot of people in Hollywood, unfortunately, they feel like if they got to get the next role, and which is what it is in Hollywood. If you want to get down in Hollywood, man, the old thing is they said you got to put on a damn dress at this point to get to a certain level. So they know what they're doing in the Hollywood game. And Hollywood is real funny style, man. They got pedophile rings out there. There was a white lady who's a conservative, but I'm real cool with. She had a movie called An Open Secret, exposing a lot of those pedophile rings out there in Hollywood. And they got her movie shut down. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on out there. And when black people try to get into those circles, and not just in Hollywood, man, let's be clear, when black people are in corporate America, you got to be a certain way to rise up on the corporate ladder, man. They don't let certain people rise up on that corporate ladder unless they got some on you sexually. But another thing, man, and we break this down in the movie, there's a terrible lie that's promoted by the white community against black people, is that the black community is intrinsically homophobic. That's a lie that's been promoted against us for so long, and we have to start calling that lie out. Black people are not homophobic, and we've never been homophobic. During the Jim Crow era, there were a lot of black entertainers who were LGBT that we knew about. Moms Mabley. What's that movie they just did? Denzel directed that movie with our sister.
Hetty.
It was an old blues singer, but she was LGBT.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The Harlem Renaissance. That was an LGBT movement. Langston Hughes and all those folks, all of those were LGBT people. We knew it and we respected them. In the Civil Rights Movement, Bayard Rustin, we knew Bayard Rustin was LGBT. He was CIA too, by the way, but that's another thing. James Baldwin, we knew he was LGBT. We had no problem with him. In the 70s, the disco era was an LGBT movement. A lot of black LGBT, the Village People, we all knew what folks were. That was not a problem. That lie started being promoted in the 90s by the white LGBT community to really show or try to create a comparative bigotry among black people so that they could punish and criticize us and kind of get us on code for their agenda. So when they start talking about they are marginalized like we are, then we shouldn't be able to say anything about it. That was to silence us. So we got to stop being afraid to call that out. The black community has never been homophobic. We're not homophobic now. We're in Atlanta. This is the most homosexual friendly city in the world. And we've never been homophobic as a community, and we don't have any mechanisms to deprive anybody of anything anyway. What's interesting, that whole black people are homophobic, that's a projection from the white LGBT community, because they're the ones who are discriminatory against black LGBT people. They don't let them into their circles. They don't let them into their clubs. They don't share the resources generated from all of these movements that they make. The white LGBT community makes billions of dollars. They get a lot of money, and they do not share that with black LGBT people who they use as mascots. So we have to call all that stuff out, and we break that down in the movie too.
What is it like for you, though, Tariq, as a person that's creating this content and then having to deal with that backlash behind it, and then also finding yourself standing in the corner by yourself, fighting a good fight, you know, and just standing up for your truth and your beliefs?
Hey, man, we got to stop being afraid. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people, look, my house has been raided. They demonize me in the media all the time. That happens. But look, even if we don't do anything, look what happens to us, man. Black people, we get targeted, we get killed, we get marginalized for going along with the program. Hell, even the coons who are out here buck dancing, they get thrown under the bus when their cooning has expired. You understand? So there is no retirement plan for going along with the system of white supremacy, man. We got to stop being afraid of calling that thing out, and we have to speak truth to power out here.
When you think about buck breaking and you taking it all the way back in history to Greco-Roman times till today, I mean, what do you think about buck breaking historically?
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. We got real deep in the movie, man. We talked about our relations to European culture, and European culture has always been about sexual dominance from day one. The minute they came out of Europe, the Greco-Roman culture, when you go over to Greece, man, you see a lot of that stuff now and all of the artifacts and all that. So when they got in contact with black culture, the first thing they started doing was dominating and sodomizing the men. They were turning black men into eunuchs. The white Arab culture was getting in on that too. So we talked about buck breaking not just in the realm of plantations, because that was a small factor of it, even way before we had to get into the history of it. And it's deep. Even after slavery, when they were lynching brothers, that was a homoerotic thing where all these white men would get together and look at nude black men and then fight over who's going to take the genitalia of these black men. So this buck breaking thing has never stopped.
Okay, Tariq, you are a historian at the same time and documentarian. What information have you came across that just wore you the hell out?
Oh, man. Well, understanding European culture, nothing really shocks me. But one thing that kind of blew me away a little bit when we were filming Buck Breaking and I was down in New Orleans and there was a white woman. And that's another thing. See, we think just the white men be on that BS. The white women be getting in on it too. And there was a woman out there who was a slave owner named Madame Lillerie, and I filmed outside of her mansion out there in New Orleans. And this woman was doing all types of crazy experiments on black people. She was also doing crude sex changes on black people. And she was so horrific, they had to run her out, and white folks ran her out of New Orleans. That's how bad she was.
Yeah.
So when white folks run you out of somewhere, you really bad. So we talk about how a lot of these experiments sexually have been done on black people in slavery. In the 1960s, the first legal sex change was done on a black man. So we've always been the guinea pigs for a lot of this stuff. That's why a lot of people are real funny style about taking these vaccines. I won't go there, you know what I'm saying? Because we start talking about them vaccines, they start, people's social media start disappearing, but I'm just going to say that. But again, watch the movie. We talk about the medical apartheid that goes hand in hand with buck breaking.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of dance around the vaccine, but I'm going to go back into the medicine side of it. When we think of medicine and African Americans, man, and the historical context in which Africans have been cut to see how deep does the black run, how much pain can they take, how much heat does it take to make the skin blister. What goes through your mind with that, with the historic reference of African Americans and medicine?
They've always been the dominant society. They've always been marveled about our physical strength, our melanin. I mean, that's something that has intrigued them since the beginning of time. In slavery, they would do all of these experiments on us. They would learn gynecology by studying the body of the black woman, chopping up and doing all types of things to the black woman's genitals. Even when Nat Turner, when he did the rebellion out there in Virginia, they got him and dissected his body and used and burned his skin and used his oil, and they would sell it to white people because they thought it was magic. Going back into ancient Egypt culture, they got those mummies in Europe. They brought those mummies to Europe, those black mummies, and started powdering them up and selling them and ingesting them. There's a great book called The Delectable Negro, talking about how white society, they've always had this thing about cannibalizing us. The Jeffrey Dahmers, that wasn't the first one, would sit up here and kill black people and eat them and ingest them. That's been going on for a long time. With them people getting our penises and all that stuff and keeping them in jars. Some of these people were eating our bodies, man. They were out here in Atlanta, as a matter of fact. When W.E.B. Du Bois came out here to Atlanta, he went by a grocery store and saw meat and there were the knuckles of a black man being sold in the meat section. And he was like, oh my God, what the hell is going on down south? So these people have always had these crazy fetishes about us, ingesting us. And let's go back to the medicine thing. They've been studying our bodies. We know about Henrietta Lacks, where they got this woman's cells, and they've been using this woman's cells, making trillions of dollars off her cells. That's just the one we know about. We know about the experiments that they've done in jail. The Tuskegee thing, that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's the only one that they really admitted to. They still do these experiments with our bodies. They keep our genitals and our body parts hidden in all of these little secret places. Out there recently in Philadelphia, I think, at a museum, they had the heads of the children that were killed in that MOVE bombing that happened in 1985, where they killed all those black people and they dropped explosives on a city street and killed all these black people. They had the remains of these black children that they were storing in the basement of a museum. So they've been studying us and keeping our bodies and heads for years because they relish us.
When it comes to the African American experience in slavery, because the thing is also you don't see that kind of history taught. You know what really happened to Nat Turner when they caught Nat Turner. We just know that Nat Turner died, but we don't know that it went down when they caught him. And that happened for a lot of different African Americans at that time if you rebelled. And then also there were a lot more people rebelling than mentioned in history as well. So you got a lot of people thinking that folks just enjoyed slavery the whole time. But then you got some people thinking that you enjoyed it, but not knowing that they were cutting your limbs off every 5 minutes. So break down the African American experience in slavery from a brutally honest perspective outside of what we see on a regular basis.
And again, going back to Nat Turner, the descendants of Nat Turner, his family, they just got his skull back. They had his skull floating around out there for centuries, and they just got the skull back. It was in Ohio somewhere. So they've done some very brutal things. But when we talk about slavery, they never talk about the rebels that we've had. Nat Turner, when he was after he killed all those white people, he was on his way to a place called the Great Dismal Swamp. That's a place up there in the Virginia area where there was a maroon colony. A lot of folks don't talk about this. There was a maroon colony there that had been there for a long time where white people couldn't go into the Great Dismal Swamp. White people just couldn't go. You get killed if you go up in there. And that was a sanctuary for a lot of black people. Never talked about. I'm working on another movie now. That's why I'm down here now. Because I'm looking at different plantations here. We're going to be filming in Florida and Virginia. We're going to be talking about black maroons in America. Because I did a movie 1804 talking about the maroons who overthrew the government out there in Haiti.
That's right.
A lot of that, some of that went down over here, especially down in Florida. The story about the Black Seminoles, a lot of folks don't know about that. That was a successful slave rebellion where a lot of black people rebelled against slavery, went down there, fought the U.S. government and won and got their freedom. And nobody really knows about that story. So we're going to break that down. That's going to be the next project.
What are your thoughts about African Americans and Indians and which one? Because, you could kind of, you could try to tell some people that, hey, man, you are a Native American, but they don't want to hear that.
Man, the Aboriginal people of this land were also black people. This is something that they've been hiding from us for a long time. When Columbus and all of these European explorers came here, they said they saw the same people over here that they saw in Africa, in what they used to call Ethiopia. Almost every white explorer said they saw black-skinned, woolly-haired people over here in the Americas. Our brother Ivan Van Sertima has a book, They Came Before Columbus, where he talks about the black people who were here. We only know about the Mongolian-looking Native Americans. That's who they tell us who was here. But there were also the black Aboriginal Native Americans, especially in California, especially around North Carolina, deep down in Florida. That's a story that we have to tell too. A lot of black people were already here. This is why I rarely use the term African American. Now let's be clear, the African people who were brought over, we did mix, we all got all mixed in together, but I use the term foundational black American because black people were the foundation of this country who were already here, and they know that. But what they do, they try to tell us that we are foreign, we came from some other place, so we don't have a birthright to this land. So we have to understand the con game that they run on us.
Putting this documentary together during the pandemic, what was that like for you?
Yeah, that delayed it a little bit. Yeah, because I was working on this thing a couple of years ago. Then the pandemic came, so I had to delay traveling around the country, but then I was able to navigate it, and we finally got it together. And man, people really, really gravitated towards it, man.
With it catching fire like it's been catching, I mean, what are your thoughts when, because see, I hate to double back to this, but I want to know about your psyche, Tariq, being able to deal with the pressure. Like you said, you look up, you got SWAT teams trying to get in your house to get to you. I know your comment section is just off the damn chain on any social media platform. How do you mentally stay sane and focused while putting out this kind of content?
It's difficult.
Yeah,
it's real difficult. I'm not gonna lie. It's very difficult, man. You got to do this stuff and then watch over your shoulder. You understand? But we're in a war, man, and this is what warfare is. We have to understand. We just being sitting ducks in war, that's not gonna cut it. You know, the price of liberty is death. Sometimes you might get hit, but if I get hit, I'm gonna have enough content out there that's gonna live on. So am I gonna die? You understand? We don't really die, man. Whatever you do in life, man, that's going to live on. Malcolm X didn't really die. I'm Malcolm X. You Malcolm X. We Malcolm X. Dr. King. We're Dr. King. This is why it's important to have a legacy. Coons don't have legacies. You understand? Coons die 1,000 deaths.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? They don't have no legacy. That's not how you want to live. You don't want to live like a rat. Going back to Fred Hampton, the guy who snitched on Fred Hampton, William, I forgot his last name. This dude was a rat. He lived like a rat, and he died like a rat. He got hit by a fucking car. That's living and dying. And after he was in witness protection, this dude had to hide out the rest of his life and then got hit by a damn car like a rodent. That's not how you live, man.
What are your thoughts on those that, you know, pull what Bayard them pulled and work against as an opposition towards the movement, man?
Hey, man, we got to understand that's going to happen. We got to understand we're going to have some turncoats out here, but we got to have enough of us on code where the turncoats will be ineffective. See, this is why it's important for a lot of us to be on code, because the thing is, the dominant society, they're going to elevate the turncoats. We better watch whoever they're elevating on television. We better watch them. Those are the ones we better say, hey, let's not have them in our circles. If they're promoting somebody way too much, that's a problem.
From the business standpoint of everything, though, Tariq, you're independent, making it do what it's supposed to, but you're still successful at the same time. Can you break down that game to me for those that want to be independent filmmakers as well and want to put out content, but they feel like they need to be accepted by the dominant society to be successful?
I tell black people, man, if you want to be successful independently, you got to learn how to gain the trust of the community. When they trust you, they'll support you, but you got to trust yourself. A lot of folks, we don't trust ourselves. Folks think, okay, I need somebody white to help me. We got to get that out of our system. When you start trusting yourself, you can get stuff done. I want us to understand as black people, man, we're the ones who really put a lot of game out here that a lot of people get and they use it, and we think it's something that they created and it's something that came from us. Direct marketing like Avon and Mary Kay and all of those products that makes millions of dollars, they got all that game from Madam C.J. Walker. Correct. Madam C.J. Walker was the first person to do direct sales and direct marketing where they would have certain tiers of people sell to different tiers, and they had all of these agents all over the place. They got that directly from sisters, man. A lot of the game, independent filming as we know it, they got it from Oscar Micheaux. That was a brother who could not get into the Hollywood game because that was monopolized by a few white families. So this brother started doing what was called four-walling theaters around the country, meaning paying to get his movie, paying to rent a theater and then raising the money and showing his movies independently. He was the one who really got the independent movie game popping. A lot of people believe the Oscar award is really named after him secretly. So we have to understand what we've done in the game. Our brother Melvin Van Peebles, who I know, real good dude, the blaxploitation game, he got that popping again by going to the grassroots, getting support. Hollywood saw that and jumped on his bandwagon. Yeah. So even now with my independent films with Hidden Colors and all that, Hollywood, they know what's up. This is why Hollywood keeps trying to put out their little slave movies now. If you notice, they're putting out movies like Hidden Figures. That's not a coincidence they named their movie Hidden Damn Figures, man. You understand? So they see what's up.
I ask this question too because I have been seeing a lot of Hollywood television shows now that are based in those Jim Crow eras and slave eras, but they're no longer depicting the black people as going along with the program now. So you got different shows that show black people standing up, like Lovecraft Country. They in there raising Cain. They were in there raising Cain as well too. So what do you think about the narrative being kind of switched up a little bit now?
Lovecraft was cool. There's another thing on Amazon now called Underground. I think Underground Railroad or something like that.
Yeah,
but here's the trick. Yeah, here's the trick though. They'll show our history of us kind of fighting back, but in the realm of fantasy, they'll inject some type of science fiction fantasy with demons and warlocks. So now, it's like Star Wars now, so it's not a threat. Yeah. In real life, they're not going to tell what really happened. We're talking about, in this next movie, we're going to talk about what the Seminoles did down there in Florida. They were down there killing them white plantation owners for real. Wasn't no damn fantasy. They were going to plantation to plantation in Florida, burning them shits down and freeing people and killing the white slave owners all in Florida. That ain't no fantasy. It ain't gonna be no warlocks, no science fiction, no demons, no Dungeons and Dragons. We're gonna tell the truth.
No, I'm with you on that. When you put it that way, I definitely understand where you're coming from with that, because it is science fiction when you look at it.
And they do the same thing when they depict European history. Whenever they talk about European history, like back in the Dark Ages, they always put it in the realm of fantasy, just like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. It's always a fantasy thing, because back in those days, Europe wasn't shit. Europe was struggling.
And they would tear you up in that too.
Yeah. Europe was not the place to be, man. Europe was a hellhole. So they don't want to show how it really, really was and how the Moors had to go in there and clean all that up. That's the truth.
What do you think about how the Moors were treated after they cleaned everything up?
After the Moors cleaned everything up, the dominant society understood, well, not the dominant society, the white society over there started to see their phenotype changing. The Spanish people started getting darker. So they said, okay, we want to stay white. These people are doing something to our bloodline. So the first blood laws and the blood quantum laws came from the white Christians of Spain. They started to say, hey, we need an Inquisition. We need a Reconquista to get all the Jews and the Moors out of here, because they're changing our bloodline. They're turning us into mulattoes. That's really what the Crusade, not the Crusades, but the Reconquista was all about. So they were pushing the Moors, and it took them 700 years to finally get the Moors out of Europe, out of Spain. And in the year 1891, November 25th, that's when they got the keys to Grenada, which was the last Moorish palace there. It was a black Moor named Boabdil, and they got the keys from him on November 25th. That's where Thanksgiving really comes from. Thanksgiving don't come from them eating no damn turkey and stuff with the Indians over here. It came from them getting the keys to Grenada so they can get access to those maps. The minute they got access to those Moorish maps, Christopher Columbus got those Moorish sailors, the Nino brothers, and he immediately came over here, and then they started to conquer different parts of the world.
Now, on another note, to switch it up a little bit, what do you think about hip-hop with the deaths of a lot of young rappers in the last few years? It's seeming like, people are dying every other week in hip-hop, and these are large artists that could really affect change if they had an opportunity to grow up a little bit.
You know what's interesting in the hip-hop game now? They promote a lot of drug use, heavy. They let rappers know, hey, man, if you rap about lean and mollies and doing all this, man, we'll triple your budget, we'll triple your video budget, we'll get you a bigger tour budget. Back in the golden era of hip-hop, man, even though there were drug users or whatever, the people self-regulated themselves and said, hey, we're not going to promote drug use. Now, we'll talk about slinging dope or whatever, but we're not going to talk about drug use. We're not going to promote that to the kids. That's what Self-Destruction and all those records came out. But now, man, it is completely glorified, and then we have all these brothers and sisters, really brothers, dying because of this stuff. So that's not cool. We need to get back on code where we don't really promote that. That's not what we need to be promoting at all, just for health reasons.
When you're not doing documentaries and raising Cain, what are you doing for it, Tariq?
Man, I'm always working on stuff, man. I'm working on a book now called Foundational Black American Race Hustler, because the white supremacists always call me a race beta and a race hustler. So that's going to be the name of my book.
Well, break that down. Get a little deeper with that.
Yeah. I'm talking about that. Yeah. If you Google race hustler, I think my face come up. Literally, my face will come up. because the white supremacists hate to be called out. That's the thing. They like to play this game where white supremacy is not supposed to exist, and everything that bad happens to black people is our own fault. No, everything that happens to us is dominated and orchestrated by the white supremacists, and we have to acknowledge that. And I talk about how deep white supremacy is in the book, and I talk a little bit about my life in relations to me understanding white supremacy growing up, me figuring out this thing, because it takes a lot of us a long time to figure out how the system works, if we do figure it out, because it's a very intricate system. So that book is going to be coming out hopefully this fall, and I'm finishing up on it now. So I'm always working on stuff.
Getting us on code, though, Tariq,
Yes.
How do we get everybody to understand that, hey, man, we are family, we need to be working together, we need to support each other, we need to be able to go directly to the consumer with each other to make this money, and then also put the money back into the community at the same time?
And this is why we have to fight propaganda. See, the dominant society, they promote to us, well, look, you black folks don't need to be all as a group and on code. It's all about individuality with you black folks. This is why they're always trying to elevate one over the other. They're always trying to incentivize one black person over the other. And we got to stop falling for that trick bag. When we look at black folks on television, in order to get on TV, they make you talk down to other black people. And I really hate when I see sports figures do this. The Charles Barkleys and all these people, they got to get on ESPN and talk down on black people. Our brother Kwame Brown called that out recently. Shout out to that brother.
What are your thoughts on Kwame raising Cain? Because it seems like Kwame was not going for it.
Man, that brother, he went there. They were talking about him, and he said, look, a lot of y'all, including Stephen A. Smith, y'all make y'all money sitting on TV denigrating black men. Y'all some Sambos. He was keeping it. I didn't see no lie in what he was saying, man, because I done called Stephen A. Smith out over his Samboing before. You can't sit around here and get on TV and say anything about no white people, but you can talk about black folks all day. Like LeBron James, he just talked about the sister up there in Ohio getting stabbed, and they attacked him like, oh, stick to basketball, stick to basketball. But when you want to talk about how black on black crime is a problem, well, they'll let all the sports figures talk about that. So they play this little double standard game, and we got to stop being afraid of calling that out.
Reality, Tariq, because this reality of buck breaking, if you were to send this to people that are not woke or don't have a clue, this would be in an alternate universe to them. You see what I'm saying? So, I mean, break down the realities that are out here that people might not understand or recognize at the same time.
Man, people know instinctively that something is going on, because look, when we look at television, we see an agenda, man. Everything we see on TV when it relates to us, they're talking about we have to embrace different types of sexualities. We see it, it's in our schools, it's everywhere, especially with black people. So even black people who are in denial, when they see buck breaking, you can't deny that. We just put so much truth there, so much documentation there, so much real history there, so many receipts there. You cannot deny the truth of what's going on out here.
Okay, so now I got to go ahead and take it there, Tariq.
Yeah.
Lil Boosie, he rose Cain about, Dwayne Wade's son.
Yeah.
He went over there to talk to Mike Tyson about it. Mike Tyson, kind of gave him the business because his daughter was gay, And that turned out to be a whole crazy ordeal for Boosie. I mean, it was not good publicity that followed his opinions on that. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, Bootsy, he spoke his opinion, and that's the thing. When people like Bootsy and any other person speaks about their opinion on children being sexualized, because that's where it is with me. I don't want to see any child being sexualized, no matter girl, boy, whatever, trans, non-binary, whatever you want to say. That's just not cool as far as children. So I feel Bootsy on that. And this thing where they got drag queen story time, where they got these drag queens reading to children, I don't think that's cool, because a lot of these people have been charged with pedophilia. So we shouldn't have that around our kids, and we have to stop being afraid of calling that out. But again, black people, we've been told if we call it out, that's just more of that black homophobia. Let's stop being afraid of the labels they're going to give us, because they're going to call us names anyway. We got to stop being afraid of that and call this nonsense out, man.
Transhumanization. See, I understood transgenders, but when y'all came with the transhumanization, I said, oh, they done took it up to another notch in this thing. Break that down, Tariq.
Man, a lot of these folks, and that's another part of the game, this trans thing, they keep throwing that. We keep hearing trans, and a lot of these people who are connected with a lot of these LGBT programs, and also a lot of people who are connected with these pedophilia cases like Epstein, these people were into transhumanism, where they're trying to morph humans in with machines, and this is like a new eugenics program. See, it all goes back to white supremacy. The eugenics program was about white supremacists determining who's going to be fit to survive and live and how they can tailor the population. So now when they're using this trans thing, they're getting the word trans out there so they can get federal funds, tax dollars, so that the public can be on board with it. So when they start doing these experiments on human beings, there's not going to be an outcry because the trans thing is already out there. So if they can go transgender, transsexual, transracial, just like with that Rachel Dolezal thing, they're going to just do everybody's genderless, and you can be better controlled if everybody's just one big old android type of thing. Just like they did on plantations, brother. Plantations were experimental locations. On the plantations, as we talked about in the movie Buck Breaking, they ungendered everybody. They treated black men and black women the same. They put little boys in dresses. They made the black women go out there and haul the same amount of cotton as the black men. That's what Sojourner Truth said. Ain't I a woman? Y'all treat me like a damn man. We were ungendered, and that's what they're doing now. They have to experiment on us first because, see, we're the ones who always fight against the system of white supremacy. We're the only ones who consistently fight against that. Once they can break us, they got everybody else.
So where do you think the transhumanization is going, and where do you see the future of that if it gets, put into main society?
Man, when they do the transhuman thing, see, that's when they start implanting chips. Because when people are talking about these vaccines, you saw a lot of people were concerned about chips being injected into people
that nanotechnology.
Right, that nanotechnology. Once they start putting these chips and things in people and meshing people with machines, they already do stuff like that with Norplants and all that. So them doing that on a grand scale, they can control people. If they want to find somebody and they want to off somebody, hell, you could just push a couple of buttons and off a whole generation of people just like that. So that's why they're trying to push this thing. You can control people way better.
How did you survive COVID-19, Tariq?
Man, I stayed in the crib. And I wore the mask, but I mainly stayed in the crib, and I played it real safe, man.
Yeah.
I played it very safe, and thank goodness I didn't get no COVID.
Yeah.
And I'm glad everybody who got it recovered.
Exactly.
Yes, indeed.
Lastly, how can these folks contact you? What you got coming up next, and is there anything else you want to get off your chest?
Hey, man, y'all need to go get Buck Breaking at buckbreakingmovie.com. You know what? When I did the movie, because there is some of the things are a little explicit in there.
Oh, it gets real.
Yeah, some of it gets real. And I was thinking, when I was doing the movie, I'm like, should I put this in there? I said, look, we might as well tell the whole truth. I'm not going to play no games with it, man. It happened. We need to see the graphicness of it and show what happened and talk about what happened. Share it with your kids. For a minute, I was like, I don't know if kids should watch it. If you have kids, I would say from 10 up, let them see it so that they can understand what's going on. Family, some of it is a little graphic, but it's graphic in a historical sense. Share this movie. Talk about it in the communities. Understand what these folks are trying to do to us. It is warfare. We have to debrief ourselves. Go to buckbreakingmovie.com. I'm going to possibly have to do a Buck Breaking 2.
What?
Yeah. There's a lot of other stuff we didn't get to because this movie is so successful and so many people are just gravitating towards it. I know we're going to eventually have to do a sequel to this, probably after the next movie that I'm doing. But everybody can follow me on Twitter at Tariq Nasheed. Follow me on Instagram at Tariq Elite, and go to hiddencolorsfilm.com to get all the other movies. Also 1804, The Hidden History of Haiti, which I got to get you a copy of that.
I need that.
That's a great movie. It was Haitian Flag Day the other day, and a lot of my Haitian brothers and sisters were shouting that movie out. So look, we're making an impact with these things, man. Black independent films, man, we're getting this stuff out here without the dominant society's approval, which is what it should be. We got to be about nation building.
Also, I got to jump in here with one more question. The trauma, okay, because Buck Breaking shows the trauma of slavery, okay, and that being passed down generation to generation. How do you feel like that affected black people? And then also, how do we heal from that trauma and move forward?
Yeah,
or can we even do it? Is it just embedded in us now? They done beat us so doggone bad.
No. What we do, we use trauma and we use that as fuel for strength. We got to understand that over in Europe, the white society felt like they were traumatized when the Moors were dominating that area. They used that as fuel to say, hey, look, we need to start dominating them so that our bloodline can survive. So people need to learn how to use trauma as fuel for their empowerment, and that's what we're doing now. Look, both of my sides of my family are descendants of slaves. We went through trauma. When we filmed Buck Breaking, I filmed on plantations in Louisiana. I wanted that energy. I wanted that traumatic energy that our brothers and sisters suffered, so I could fuel this movie to get the message out, to let them know we didn't forget about you. We respect your history. We respect your sacrifice that you did for us, and we're going to fight these white supremacists for you. You didn't sacrifice your life for us to sit up here being coons. We're going to carry on the legacy of empowerment, and we're going to do it unapologetically.
What has been the most fulfilling thing about you creating all this content over the years?
Man, just to have people appreciate it, man. It's successful. It resonates all around the world. The white supremacists are mad, and that's always a good thing. When they mad, that means I'm doing something right. Brothers and sisters are using this in schools. They teach this stuff in universities and schools all over the world, and that's the rewarding thing, man. It gets a lot of us on code.
Also, the cast, getting those educated people together. Can you speak on how you choose your cast and then what those people bring to each movie?
Are always good people that I like listening to, and it's very interesting that we got to get people, because you can know a lot of stuff, but if you don't have a certain level of charisma, that's very important.
That's true.
Charisma is very important, man.
Come on.
So
now.
I like to get people who people can watch on a big screen for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Because you got to keep people engaged. You got to keep them engaged. So charisma is very important. So if you notice, a lot of my speakers are very charismatic. You love to hear them teach, and beautiful black folks. And I want black folks to understand we can learn without us shucking and jiving. We're told that in order for black folks or black kids to learn something, you got to be doing dancing and doing the goddamn beatbox of ABCs and all this silly shit. No, you get some charismatic black people who are nurturing the information. We're going to gravitate towards it and love it.
Come on now, Tariq, as always, appreciate you coming through this thing, boss. Wishing nothing but the best and much success, man.
Anytime, man. Anytime I'm here for you, B.
Already. Be High Radio, shout it. Tariq Nasheed, we'll holler at y'all in a minute, man. We go.